What's up, guys, and welcome to Player Pool. We're looking at the DraftKings main slate for NFL Week 14. Going to take a look at a lot of the injuries that are going on that are creating value on this slate and are continuing to create value. And I'll get into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at PumaCom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Player Pool. Going to break down the NFL Week 14 main slate on DraftKings and build some lineups. First, we've got a lot of injury situations to get through and to navigate. There's been some value created with some running back situations, and it continues to be a little bit murky for a lot of this slate. And it's going to be one of those ones where you're going to have to be paying close attention on Sunday morning and throughout the night. And I am recording this at about 9:30 on Saturday night, so we got a decent amount of news in so far. So I'll be able to break down like what we have, and we'll take a look at like the underdog feed and some of the depth charts to get a better idea of what we're looking at here. But before I dig into that, make sure to hit the like button. Get me to 30 likes so we can put out a shorter video later on. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. You're going to want to subscribe for when the shorter videos come out and when the game script episodes come out, because they come out at random times. They don't really have a set time for when I put them out. And you're going to want to subscribe and sign up for the alerts to do that. And also, I'm trying to get to 1,400 subscribers. I'm about, like 20 short of 1,300. So if you guys can help me get to 1,300 first, that'd be great. And we'll dig into this slate right now. All right. So DraftKings, before we get into this, let's take a look at some of these injury situations that we're dealing with here. Bucky Irving is looking like he's going to play. He's expected to play. Kenneth Walker has been downgraded to out. That's going to put Charbonnet in play. We're looking at CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson are not listed on the injury report for Monday, but that's a Monday game show. Breece Hall is out. He's been downgraded to out with his knee. So that's going to put Allen in play. We're going to have his backup who's already had a few good weeks, even with Breece playing. So that's going to be another potential value situation. I got to get his price. Dallas Goedert is out. Don't fall for the Calcaterra. All they're going to do is throw it more to the existing players. And that is a situation where Barkley is probably going to be the guy that we want in that game regardless. They're playing against Carolina, and Barkley, should have a pretty decent setup in that game. McConkey is questionable. I think he's on the, like the questionable side of questionable, so we don't know what his situation. He might be a game time decision. CeeDee Lamb, we got Demarcus Robinson. I think those are some of the main ones. Malik Neighbors, we're waiting on. DJ Moore, apparently. DeAndre Swift, George Pickens is another one. And Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers is an important one too for one of these chalky spots. They're playing against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay versus the Raiders. I think that's a game that can actually shoot out this week, and that's going to be a fun one to break down. So we have some interesting injuries there, and established the run. Put out a tweet. Malik Neighbors looking at it. We just talked about him. George Pickens, Kenneth Walker, we already know is out. Bucky Irving, he looks like he's going to play. DJ Moore and DeAndre Swift. Jacoby Myers, Lad McConkey, Keon Coleman, and Dalton Kincaid. If Kincaid plays, he's in a really good matchup this week. Kendre Miller, I'm not really concerned about him. Alexander Madison, Raheem Mostert, and Jatavian Sanders. If Mostert's out, that's going to be really good for A-Chain because Mostert's been getting a little bit of the workload there. Breece Hall, they have listed as doubtful, but he's now out. Jalen Coker, doubtful. And as far as guys who are out, McCaffrey and Jordan Mason are both out, and that's opened up the door for Garendo. Taysom Hill and Bub Means are both out. More injuries for the New Orleans skill position players. Cedric Tillman is out. Trevor Lawrence out after that bad hit last week. Dallas Goedert, already mentioned, he's out. Roshan Johnson out is going to be good for Swift this week. Samir White also out. So we got Samir White and Alexander Madison is questionable. So, that's going to be a good situation for the rookie there. I forget his name. We'll get into that when we get into the Raiders situation. As far as guys who are in, Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Devontae Smith, and Alan Lazard. Devontae Smith will be in a good spot with Goddard being out. So we got a lot of interesting injuries here. Let's get into this breakdown, and we'll dig into those injuries as we're kind of moving along. I think let's break down these cheap guys first. So, Swift could be in a good spot. He's at 5,700. Garendo is at 5,400. He's probably my favorite cheap guy. Charbonnet is going to be good at 4,800. You've seen all this value opening up for the running back position. McCormick, he's the rookie I'm thinking of. Sincere McCormick. He looked pretty decent last week against Kansas City. Kansas City's a tough run defense, and he had 5 yards a carry versus them. Looked pretty good. And he's in a situation against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is giving up. They're giving up 25 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. Even with Vita Vea, they have still been leaking about 25 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. So that's going to be an interesting spot for Sincere McCormick. And he might be one of those guys that gets a little bit lesser owned than he might be on a different slate just because all this other values opening up. So it might be a pivot, but the game script might not be in his favor, but I do think that the Raiders can put up a fight in this one. So Sincere McCormick is a guy that you're going to want to leave in your player pools. He's just above the bare men for the running back position, 4,600 for McCormick. Of course, who's the other Raiders running back there? Abdullah. Abdullah was also getting a lot of work against Kansas City. He got 10 attempts, only 39 yards, though. 3.9 yards versus McCormick, who was at 5 yards a carry. So pretty interesting stuff there. Abdullah's been around forever. This dude's old. Don't be surprised if McCormick, the Raiders season, they're going to want to see what they have in this young guy. And they're in a game against Tampa Bay where they just want to put up points. So, we'll see how that game plays out. But that's about it for the value at the running back, except for who's the backup to Breece Hall. Let's find him real quick. Make this easier on myself. Allen is at 5K. So 5K, a lot of these just cheap running backs. Let's see what the matchup's looking like for Allen. Miami was giving up a bunch of points to the running back position, but since Tua's been back, teams have been forced to throw the ball more. So Miami's only given up 22.6 DraftKings points a game to the running back position, but that's going to set up Allen to have a decent matchup at least. And if their game is kept close, then Allen's going to have a good role in this game. So Allen is going to be interesting this week too. I think most people are going to be on Garendo, which makes a lot of sense because the amount of usage that San Francisco running backs get. But we're getting into a situation here now where we've got about 4 of these very cheap running backs that are going to be in situations where they have the most of the workloads. So always good to see that when you got all that value at the running back position. It's going to open things up a lot more with your choices in quarterbacks and wide receivers and stuff like that. So let's dig into Jets first, Miami first. This one I had as a total of 44.5 points with Miami as 6.5-point favorites. Rodgers has been playing terrible. The word was, like at least earlier in the week, there was talk about is Rodgers going to get benched? And Rodgers had to answer that question in a press conference on like what he knows about the head coach's situation, where he's potentially thinking about benching Rodgers, and of course the Jets came out and said that wasn't going to be the case. But just the drama there in general is pretty interesting. The matchup is not the best for anyone on the Jets, really. Like, they got a middling matchup at the wideout position. 19.6 DraftKings points a game is what Miami's allowing. Miami's allowing 13.2 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. But since Adams has been there, Conklin really hasn't done too much. So Braylon Allen, I think, is the most interesting guy on the Jets. On top of that, Wilson, he's been getting less of a workload with Adams around, but Wilson, he's still playing pretty decent. Let's take a look at Wilson. He's only at 6,600 too. He had three pretty weak weeks in a row, and they're against defenses where you can normally exploit lately. So yeah, not very good for Wilson. But prior to that, he had that 30-point game against Houston. He had a 19-point game against New England, and then he had a 27 and a 32 against Buffalo and Minnesota. But he's just fallen off the map as the playoff hopes for the Jets like disappeared, and Rodgers is just like not playing well. So not good for Garrett Wilson. But like he could obviously play well at any time. Adams is now 6,700. These guys were over 7K a few weeks ago. Adams playing mostly in the slot. As far as the slot matchup against Miami, that's the worst matchup for the receivers, but it's Devontae Adams, so he can definitely win any matchup. Houston, 22 DraftKings points against Seattle. He had 17, and against Indy he had 13. So not great numbers there for Adams. Not seeing the same Adams that we're used to. Let's see. Moving on. Tyreek Hill, obviously playing with the injury all year. We haven't seen too much out of him. We got a 20 DraftKings point week out of him last week. And then a couple weeks ago, he had 19 DraftKings points. So he might be coming back to life here. He's at 7,100 against the Jets. The Jets secondary hasn't been as good as they have that we're accustomed to. So there could be a potential situation there. But he's at 7,100. I think there's other better options on the table this week, but it never hurts to keep a cheap Tyreek Hill in your player pool, especially with the like 8, 6, and 9 targets recently. Maybe he's get a little bit healthy there. So Tyreek could be interesting this week. Waddle, I don't know what is up with Waddle. Waddle, I think he's just been negatively impacted by Jonnu Smith, but even before Jonnu started to pick things up, like Waddle's been. Seems like it's going to be one of those situations where we find out at the end of the season he was dealing with an injury all season or some type of an injury. But yeah, Waddle has been MIA all season. He had a 31-point week a couple weeks ago, though. So let's take a look at Lazard is back. He missed a few games, but he is back. So that's not good for Adams or Wilson either. Other than that, I don't really see any wide receivers there. We got Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith's been really good. Could be another decent week for him. The Jets are giving up only 9.3 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. Let's take a look and see if we have any sort of injuries to that Jets secondary this week that maybe Jonnu can exploit. All right. If we're looking at the Sauce Gardner is doubtful this week. Quantez Stiggers is out. Got a bunch of CJ Mosley. Okay. CJ Mosley being on IR, might help out Jonnu a bit, like some of these linebackers. Looks like they got a lot of depth issues on the linebacker core here. So that's interesting. And then the secondary, they got, a couple of their left cornerbacks out. So let's take a look at who aligns on the right side of the field for the Dolphins the most. And that would be Tyreek. Tyreek is on the right side of the field 39% of the time. No Sauce. That's going to be a situation like the the Jets don't really shadow either. So, like Tyreek could be set up for a decent game here this week with those injuries to the Jets. And they haven't played very well since they got rid of Robert Saleh. Remember, Saleh was a defensive-minded coach. They hired him from the 49ers when he was doing a great job as a defensive coordinator over at the 49ers, turned this defense into just an absolute monster. And then they fired him, and the Jets D has not been playing the same since. And, could have something to do with Saleh not being there anymore. And, that on top of these injuries that we're seeing now with Sauce and some of the secondary, like that's going to be interesting for Tyreek this week. So keep Tyreek in your player pool this week at 7,100. Other than that, I think either one of these Ds could be interesting. Dolphins and Jets. Probably the Jets more interesting at 2,700, but Tua's been playing better recently, so very tough to get there. And then we still got Braylon Allen. So Braylon Allen on top of Tyreek Hill. Might be a nice little mini stack there. Atlanta versus Minnesota. This is a matchup with a 46.5-point total, with Minnesota as 5.5-point favorites. Justin Jefferson is in a good matchup this week with the Falcons giving up 28.5 DraftKings points a game to wideout position. They're also giving up 19.7 to the quarterback position. This is a revenge game for Kirk Cousins on the other side. So, like Sam Darnold is going to have a good matchup. Justin Jefferson is going to have a good matchup. Um, Cousins is going to have a middling matchup. They've been getting better recently. Minnesota's defense has been getting better against the pass games of other teams. Earlier in the season, we were seeing a lot of good opportunity to go against them because they blitz so much, and they were taking these big leads against these teams, like forcing teams to throw basically. So Atlanta could be in a interesting situation here as far as like a potential shootout. 21 DraftKings points a game to the wideout position is what Minnesota is allowing. So, we're going to see Drake London in an interesting spot. We're going to see Darnell Mooney in an interesting spot here. The tight end position only allowing 10.5 DraftKings points a game. And the running back position, Minnesota has been stout against run, only allowing 16.9 DraftKings points. So that's going to probably take out Bijan Robinson. Like he's been kind of hot recently, but it's tough to going to be tough to start him against this Minnesota defense. Aaron Jones, has a little bit of a better matchup. Middling against Atlanta's D, giving up 21.6 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. Atlanta, see if they got any injuries going on with Atlanta that would make him interesting. Let's see. Let's go over to Atlanta. All right, we got fullback out. We got like a bunch of defensive guys on IR, but I don't know if it's anything that's going to impact anyone's matchup here. Let's see. Yeah, so middling matchup for Aaron Jones. Like, so not really too interested there, especially with all the value we have at running back this week. Let's see. Let's go to wide receiver. Jefferson, mentioned him earlier. Obviously, he's in play any week. He's coming down to 7,800 in salary. He hasn't done too much recently, but if you can get Justin Jefferson at 7,800, that's kind of a sneaky discount on Justin Jefferson. He's been 9K. Maybe he hasn't been 9K, but he's been close to 9K for a large part of the season, and now we're seeing him under 8K. Those types of discounts in a good matchup. Justin Jefferson, let me see what his ownership is going to be this week. All right, Justin Jefferson's ownership. 15%. So, if you're getting Justin Jefferson at 15% in a good matchup at 7,800 in a game where, they might be looking to make a point against Kirk Cousins, or if Kirk Cousins can put up any type of a fight against Minnesota, this could be an interesting spot for Justin Jefferson at 7,800. Drake London, like I mentioned, has a decent matchup. Hasn't done too much recently, but he's kind of been sticking in that 17-point range two out of the last 3 weeks. Drake London, he's going to be in a good spot, and Darnell Mooney is in a good spot too. But Mooney, he really, Kirk Cousins has to go off for Mooney to be in play. So if you think Kirk Cousins can go off this week, then Mooney is in play in a good matchup. Not interested in Pitts, but Hawkinson, on the other hand, The Falcons are giving up 12.7. That's a middling matchup, and he's only 4,300. He's been staying in this salary range since he got back, basically. He hasn't been this cheap yet. And he's had a couple decent weeks. He's getting a decent amount of targets, 6 targets, 9 targets, 9 targets again. So he's been getting a decent amount of targets. So I think that Hawkinson will be in play this week, 4,300. He's too cheap. Other than that, again, maybe you can get something with these Vikings defense. Maybe their defense can overwhelm Kirk Cousins. New Orleans at the Giants. Another one of these games I'm not really interested in. Let's see if we're still waiting on news on Neighbors, like I said. But the running backs on both sides have the best matchups. Giants are giving up 25.1, and the Saints are giving up 25 DraftKings points a game to running backs. Giants slot has an interesting matchup. 19.7 DraftKings points a game is what the Saints are giving up to the slot receiver. So Wan'Dale Robinson will be interesting, but especially if Neighbors is out. But Kamara has largely been under 20 DraftKings points. He had that 130-point week a few weeks ago. And then prior to that, he's only had 4 weeks over 20 DraftKings points. So that's, for 8K, that's not worth 8K. Tracy, for 5,800, like Tracy's a good value against a weak defense. Tracy more likely to be able to pay off his salary than Kamara. We're looking for about 22, 23 DraftKings points for Tyrone Tracy to pay it off. He's done that a couple times already this season, so he's definitely capable of it. And now he's playing a weak defense in a game that it should be relatively close. 3.5 is the spread, 41.5 point total in that one. So Tracy is definitely in play. It's going to be interesting. I think Locke is going to be the quarterback this week. Had 16.8 DraftKings points last week. I think he had a rushing touchdown. Yeah, he had a rushing touchdown last week. But not very impressive. That offensive line that the Giants are dealing with, no quarterback is going to do well under that. They dumped Daniel Jones already. DeVito got killed in the game that he played, and he's been out ever since. And Drew Lock looked terrible last week just because these guys don't have time to throw. It's like a terrible offensive line. They're on like their 10th iteration of it so far this season. Just you can't really fault these quarterbacks so much as just the team did. They're just struggling at offensive line, and they're just not very good team in general. But to put a team like that with no defense, no protection for their quarterback, it's just a bad scene. But running backs are interesting in this one. Neighbors, he did not practice Friday. So as of Friday, like they might just decide to bench him this week. Like, why are you going to risk Neighbors in a meaningless game? That would make New Orleans interesting. Valdez-Scantling, 4,600. Like, dude's caught touchdowns in 3 straight games. But he's only getting a few targets, so he's very touchdown dependent. And, that luck's gonna dry up at some point. So not really high on Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but at 4,600, it doesn't hurt to leave him in your player pool. Not a good matchup for him, though. Let's see. Now, Theo Johnson is on IR. New York has a middling matchup against the tight end position. So that makes Bellinger a little bit interesting at 2,700. Theo Johnson was getting some decent. That's Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson will be interesting too with Taysom out, but it's not the best matchup. Let's see. Theo Johnson when he was playing, he's getting a decent amount of targets the last few games that he was playing. I was using him in lineups because he's been cheap all season, but he's been getting decent targets, so it's been worth keeping him in your lineups. But obviously with him hurt, Bellinger might actually be interesting. Wonder if they have another. I think Bellinger is really the option there. And defenses, like we got both defenses will be in play. And both are cheap under 3K. So let's move on to the next game. Oh, quarterbacks. Yeah, neither of the quarterbacks have a very good matchup in that one either. Carolina, Philly. This is going to be the decision point. Hurts and Barkley are the guys putting up points for Philly. If you think that they're going to crush the Panthers, it's either going to be Jalen Hurts getting his touchdowns or it's going to be Saquon Barkley. Since the Eagles got back a major piece of their offensive line a few weeks ago, it's been leaning more towards Barkley. Prior to that, Barkley had been losing all his touchdowns to Jalen Hurts, but once that, what was the guy's name? Which guy was it? It's Mailata. When Mailata returned a couple weeks ago, let's see. Try to get a here. Let me go into Pro Football Reference. All right, so let's look at Mailata's game logs, see which games he missed. So you look at that. The last 3 weeks that Mailata's been back, Jalen Hurts has not done much. Prior to that, 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4 weeks that he missed, Jalen Hurts had 31, 29, 35, and 22 DraftKings points. Jalen Hurts was getting those touchdowns. So maybe Mailata was that extra push that Saquon needed to open up those lanes and get him in a good situation to score touchdowns as opposed to making it to the like in the 5 to like 1 to 5 yard line. But look at what he's done these last few weeks: 22, 49, 36.8. A couple weeks ago he had 36.9. He's just been a stud all year. But I think if I'm going to go in a direction this week, Barkley might be the better way to go in this one because the Carolina defense not going to be able to put up much of a fight against them. They're giving up 29 DraftKings points a game to the to the running back position. Carolina's defense only giving up 16.1 points to wideouts and 10.6 to slot receivers. But obviously, just giving up a boatload of points to the running back position. They've been giving a lot of points to tight end position too. They've been giving up 18.4 DraftKings points a game to tight ends and 19.8 to the quarterback position. But I don't like Calcaterra. They don't use anyone outside the circle of trust for this Philly offense. Maybe he'll get a touchdown attempt or something like that, but I really don't. I really don't see it for Calcaterra. I think it's going to be more, like maybe Devontae Smith might benefit more, like from those similar routes as Goddard. So Devontae Smith, I might give a bump to him with Goddard being out this week. Let me take a look at the man zone situation with these guys. All right, let's see here. I usually go to PFSF's report on man versus zone. So I'm going to go to Philadelphia. I'm going to see what kind of defense Carolina's running. They're running zone coverage at the 9th highest rate versus zone coverage. Devontae Smith has had a 19 percentage target rate, and AJ Brown has 22%. So both of them have found a decent amount of success against zone coverage, but like that's a lot closer than man coverage, where AJ Brown has a huge edge over Devontae Smith. So this could be a Devontae Smith week, especially if they're not going to be too aggressive in the air against Carolina. So don't be surprised if Smith has a decent week. But really, it's Barkley and Hurts that I'm interested in. If I was going with Hurts and I wanted to stack him with somebody, Devontae Smith is only 5,800. I think it would make a lot of sense to stack him with Smith. Other than that, I don't like anyone in Carolina with the way that Philly's defense has been playing lately. This be more of a spot to play the Eagles D. Bryce Young has been playing really well lately, but I don't think that he's going to be able to pull it off against the Eagles. I think we save him for another week, but he's going to be usable here pretty soon, but just not this week. Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. This is a situation where they had that snow game a few weeks ago. They're playing in Pittsburgh this week. Winston has been a stud, 38.9 DraftKings points, about 39 DraftKings points last week against Denver. Versus Pittsburgh, he only had 15, but remember, it was the snow game. He had 30 versus New Orleans, and he had 27 versus Baltimore. So he's been on a tear, and he's in a good offense. Where they trust. Well, I guess you can say they trust him, and I don't hate the price on him at 5,400. He's not going to be afraid to throw the ball. We've seen that clearly. Tillman is out as far as his receivers. That's going to make Judy interesting. Judy's going to be getting all the attention, so I think Moore is the guy, as well as Njoku, who will probably benefit the most from Tillman being out. I said that last week too, and then Judy ended up, just laying the hammer down like with 200 and whatever yards. I had the strategy right for that showdown slate. Had Cleveland all over freaking Cleveland, and then I just I had every receiver except for Judy, thinking that Judy would be shut down by Surtain, and it was the exact opposite. He just crushed them. Pittsburgh, best matchup is going to be Pickens, with Cleveland giving up 22.8 to wideouts, but we got to see Pickens' situation. If Pickens is out, Calvin Johnson is going to be interesting. Calvin Johnson has been getting opportunities, and he's been scoring touchdowns with those opportunities, and he's 3,300. If Pickens is out, Calvin Johnson is going to be interesting. Williams would also be interesting. Let's look at his snap shares. All right, so if we're looking at Williams' snap shares, only 17% snap share last week, 19 the week before that. So he really has not gotten, very much opportunity here with Pittsburgh. About the same situation he was in with the Jets. So not seeing a whole lot of opportunity with Williams, but you never know. He's at 3,800. Moore would be my favorite guy on the Cleveland side. Moore and Njoku, but Cleveland's only Pittsburgh's only given up 11.4 DraftKings points a game to tight ends, but that puts Njoku in a decent spot. He's been getting a ton of targets too. Look at Njoku's targets. 17 last week. Only 5 versus Pittsburgh the last time, but 9, 7, 7, 14. Just a couple monster target weeks in there. Freiermuth has a good matchup. Last time versus Cleveland, he had 9.9 DraftKings. He got 4 targets versus them. How did Washington do against them? Washington ended up with 3 targets against them. Washington's a beast. I've been waiting for this dude to break out, and maybe this would be a week for it, but Freiermuth will be interesting, and so will Washington. Washington's at 2,800. Freiermuth is too expensive for like what he's accomplished this year. He hasn't done anything. He's at 3,800. As far as the quarterbacks, like I said, like Winston, I'm interested in. Russell Wilson could be interesting this week at 5,900. Last game that they played, 14.8 DraftKings points. He had 30 against Cincinnati last week. So, I'm not too interested in too much of this game. Other than, maybe that more play. And, potentially Calvin Austin. All right, so Vegas versus Tampa Bay. This is a game that I'm more interested in this week. By the way, the spread on that Pittsburgh-Cleveland, Pittsburgh's favorites by 6.5 points with a 43.5 point total. All right, so let's move on to Raiders versus the Bucks. We got a 46.5 point total on that one, with Tampa as 6.5 6.5 point favorites. This is going to be a matchup where I think we could see a potential back and forth in this one. Aiden O'Connell does pretty well when he gets the volume, and Tampa Bay's defense is definitely susceptible. We're looking at Aiden O'Connell's game log. He had 23 DraftKings points last week. He's at 4,800. He put up 23.6 against Kansas City's defense, which has been vulnerable recently, to be honest. Baker Mayfield, dude's he's been a stud for most of the season. He's faltered a little bit recently. Even after losing Godwin and Evans, he was still putting up some decent points. But like the 2 of the last 3 games, we're looking at 9 DraftKings points against San Francisco, and we're looking at 12 versus Carolina last week, and what was a should have been a decent spot for him. But he less than 20 points against New York. maybe this is a game where he gets back on track. The Raiders are giving up 18.9 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. That's a top 10 matchup for Baker. O'Connell on the other side, Tampa Bay's been giving up 22.4 DraftKings points. Thing with Baker is who to stack him with. Raiders have been giving up 11.3 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. That's not a good matchup, or not a good situation for the wideouts. So Mike Evans, he's going to get fed. Mike Evans can beat this matchup. Let's look at the injuries for the Raiders here. Looking at the Raiders injuries, Jacorian Bennett is on IR and Nate Hobbs is out, so they're a little bit thin. A couple weeks ago, like I said, the fade Cortland Sutton because of the way that the Raiders defense had played, but they were missing a couple corners in that game, and Sutton went off. So I certainly think that Evans can do the same thing, given the damage to the Raiders secondary. And Jacoby Myers, questionable why we're looking at this. Zamir White and obviously out. Sincere McCormick. If Madison is out too, it's going to be Sincere McCormick. I think it's going to be like I said at the top of the show, he's going to be another one of these cheap guys. Trey Tucker could benefit with Jacoby Myers being hurt. DJ Turner's on IR, so that's less competition for Trey Tucker. Terrace Marshall, I'm not even sure how long he's been on the team. And then, of course, Brock Bowers. I put out a underdog short with a couple different options, and this is a game that I focused on heavily in that short. I really liked the situation with. I'm going to share this tab over here. So when I give these out, they're not something to bet the farm on, but there's something you can throw $10 on and be live to, potentially win a decent amount of money. Like this one, for instance, I threw. Let's see. Okay, so this is my my more risky pick'em that I built for underdog. You guys can use the promo code SEEK, SEEK, and get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. So we got playoff best ball starting up. It's already started up. I'm going to put out a show on that pretty soon here. And that's been my favorite game because of strategy in it. Trying to pick the best teams to, that might be on buys in week one or whatever, the most high-powered offenses that could be going very far in the playoffs. But, you got to pick these teams that you can draft really late to try to get you past that first round bye. And, a lot of times you can pick out teams like last year. I had the Bills and there was a few other teams. I think the Packers, the Bills and the Packers I liked last year before they, anybody thought that they could make it into the playoffs. So we were getting them in the last rounds of the drafts. And it really opened the door to sneak through. I can't remember who the first round bye was. The Baltimore Ravens. They ended up getting eliminated in their first game. But, if the Baltimore Ravens had made it far in those playoffs, then, drafting them early and then, protecting yourself by drafting the the Packers or the Bucks really late, or the Packers or the Bills really late, we're giving you an opportunity to score a lot of points in week 1 and get your Ravens advanced to week 2, and then have them for the rest of the There's a lot of strategy that goes into it. It's very fun to play. But for this underdog pick'em, like I said, Seek, use the promo code Seek. You're going to get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. I had Mike Evans in this one. I like him going higher than 89.5 receiving yards. Like I said, I think this could be a back and forth. Bowers, I like him going higher than 8.5 receptions. I like Baker Mayfield going higher than 32.5 passing attempts. Will Levis, unrelated to this game, K-Dot and I have going higher than 0.5 rushing or receiving touchdowns. The Raiders have been giving up 15.7 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position, but they've also been giving up 0.6 touchdowns per game to the tight end position. And I think that is going to put K-Dot in a good spot this week. Unrelated to this game, I think Will Levis is in a good spot against the Jaguars. They're giving up like 280 passing yards a game, so I bumped up Levis to 259 passing yards, going higher than that. They're still pretty conservative considering what Jacksonville's given up. So in this one, this is a perfect example, like $10 entry. If this hits, we can make $1,245. So it's very inexpensive sweat. Like it's like basically a slant entry, and if it hits, then we're making $1,200. So that was a risky play. I did a less risky version of this too, where it's only 28 times your money if you win. But you can check that out over on the YouTube page. But yeah, underdog, been doing a lot of these shorts with these, potential pick'em, like correlated pick'ems, trying to focus on individual games and getting a lot of correlation in them. So we'll see how this goes. Because we still get like a huge payoff from them. Depending on how much you're willing to bump up some of those yardage totals. All right, so let's go. Let's stay on this game. I like Bowers. The Bucks have been giving up 14.7 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. The Raiders have been giving up 15.7 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. Myers is also in a good spot. The Bucks have been giving up 25.7 DraftKings points a game to the wideout position. If Myers is out, Tucker is going to be interesting. If Myers is hurt, Tucker is going to be interesting. The running back situation, Tampa Bay giving up 25.1 DraftKings points a game to the running back. That's going to put that Sincere McCormick in play if Madison's out, basically. And the Raiders, like quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, 22.4 DraftKings points a game is what Tampa Bay's given up. Tampa Bay has been healthier, though. They got healthy last week with their secondary. Go back to that secondary situation. Bucky Irving, another guy who's questionable, by the way. If he's out, then that's going to be very good for White. But according to the news, it looks like Bucky Irving's going to be in. Now, looking at the linebacker situation, KJ Britt is out. Joe Tyron Shoyinka is out. We got a safety out, Mike Edwards. Tyke Smith is questionable. Bryce Hall, though, is out, right cornerback. And Troy Hill is on IR, so very thin at right cornerback. The safety is out. Josh Hayes is out. Jamel Dean came back last week, made them a little bit better. But look at this. The defense is still banged up. So you'll keep that in mind with these Raiders. And they're already a relatively weak defense. But Like it could be a good situation for Aiden O'Connell at 4,800 in a matchup where we know that Tampa Bay can get aggressive. Baker Mayfield, I have him in my pick 'em going over 32 pass attempts. So, he definitely could make this an interesting game. Evans, another thing that's interesting about Evans is look at how many yards he has. Let's see. Well, he needs about 480 yards to get to 1,000 yards. And the thing with Mike Evans is he's hit 1,000 yards every year of his career. So I can see them making an effort to get him there for this one. Last week he had 28.8 DraftKings points, 12 targets last week, so he's coming back to health, and 12 targets against Carolina. And the Carolina kept it a close game against these guys. The Raiders, I think could do decent in this one. They got Jacoby Myers hopefully healthy and Brock Bowers. If Jacoby Myers is hurt, I'd bump him down a notch. But if Myers plays and him and Brock Bowers both playing, I think that they have a chance to at least make it competitive enough so that Evans can stay busy in this one and Baker can stay busy in this one. So, keep that in mind with this game. I think it can be a good game to target. A lot of these guys are going to be chalky though. So let's move on to the next game. Looking at Jacksonville versus Tennessee. This is one that's going to be a good matchup for Levis. Jacksonville's giving up 23.3 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. They're giving up 28.9 DraftKings points a game to the running back position, 23 DraftKings points a game to wideouts, and 14 to the tight end. So Ridley is in play. Pollard is in play, and Levis is in play. Like all those guys are in play. That's why I like Levis going over or higher than that 259 passing yards that I talked about. Trevor Lawrence obviously out in this one. We got Mac Jones again. Mac Jones might even be he's in a middling matchup. They're giving up 17.1 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. They've been pretty stout against the run, only giving up 20.8, but the run game sucks for Jacksonville. So I would imagine they're going to keep throwing it. Brian Thomas would be in play if this game shoots out a bit. The slot receiver for Jacksonville, Titans are only giving up 10.4 DraftKings points a game to the slot. They're giving up 9.8 to the tight end. So I think that Brian Thomas is the guy that's going to stand out here. If you need a run back, if you want to run a Will Levis stack, as funny as that sounds, but you got a few guys in play. In play for this one, especially with Will Levis has not been horrible recently either. So he's at 5K for his salary. So interesting play there. That Jacksonville game, 39.5 point total, 3.5 point spread. These division games, though, this game could shoot out for sure. Seattle at Arizona. This is a one with 44.5 point total with Arizona's 2.5 point favorites. Kyler Murray up and down all season. Geno has only thrown multiple touchdowns once, I believe. No, 2 times. He threw 3 against the Rams, and he threw 2 against Atlanta. Just been struggling this year. But, I think he's been pretty efficient. He's done, at one point during the season, he had, the highest maybe yards per game. I can't remember what it was, but like he was doing pretty good for a portion of the season, but then this lack of touchdowns just has not helped him for his fantasy output. Kyler Murray been very up and down too. 17 DraftKings points, 11. He goes from 28 to 5, like just kind of all over the place, but he's at 6K. So that's relatively cheap for a guy that we know that can put up in that 30-point range. And Seattle is giving up 16.8 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. They're giving up 21.6 to wideouts, so Harrison might be in play, and 17.3 to slots. That would make Dortch in play, but Dortch hasn't done anything. Yeah, Dortch has not done anything this year, and I went into this season thinking that he was going to get a decent opportunity because he was one of the favorite targets. Wilson has been getting decent targets recently. 7 targets last week, 4 and 4. He got 6 a few weeks before that. So he's been getting opportunity. Has not been doing anything with it though. But he's at 4,100, so he's relatively cheap. Really not anyone I'm seeing in this game, though. I do think that it's going to be a game that people are going to want to stack, though, with that, just being a division game, and they're 2.5-point spread in this one, 44.5-point total. I could see him, having a back and forth in this one. Connor hasn't really done anything recently. On top of that, Seattle's given up 22.7 DraftKings points a game. That's a middling matchup. Arizona's been giving up 23.2. Arizona's best matchup is going to be Jackson Smith and Jigba because the Cardinals are giving up 15.5 DraftKings points to the wideout or for the slot receivers, and then Jigba's been kind of on a roll recently. So Njigba is going to be interesting this week at 6,300. Get an idea of what his ownership is going to be here. Looking at about 15%, so he's pretty inexpensive from an ownership, considering what he's done recently. Last game that he played against Arizona, he had 19.7 DraftKings points. So that was a couple weeks ago. Trey McBride, dude's been getting a ton of targets, 12 targets and 15 targets last couple weeks, and 12 receptions in both those games. Just a beast. 21.6 and 28.3 DraftKings points. He's at 6,100. He could be interesting. Seattle is giving up 13 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position too. That's like a middling matchup. But I think Harrison ultimately has the best matchup in this one, and Njigba has a good matchup too. Charbonnet is going to be cheap with Kenneth Walker out, and you might be able to play Trey McBride in this one too. Move on to Chicago and San Francisco. San Francisco, let's look at their injuries. I'm not sure if what the situation is with their offensive line here. Let's take a look. All right, we got Trent Williams is out. Okay, so that's huge. Trent Williams is out. Aaron Banks is out. That's going to put Chicago's defense in play, I think. Bosa is out for their defense. Hufanga is questionable. Greenlaw is out. 49ers have just been decimated, like their defense. But Trent Williams and Aaron Banks being out is going to be a good situation. And Feliciano, I can't remember if Feliciano was the starting center, but he's out. So a lot of these guys just completely banged up on the San Francisco side. That's going to put Chicago's defense in play, who's been playing well. But at the same time, the 49ers have to win this game. Like, they've had to win the last few games. But with this one, there's really, they really can't do anything about it. Like, Eberflus got fired for the Chicago. They might be looking at a head coach bounce. This one could get interesting, like with Williams versus San Francisco with defense, and then Chicago's defense going up against Purdy, like who has to win. We got interesting situations developing, obviously, like I talked about with Guerrero being a cheap running back option for us. Kittle will probably be interesting this week. He's at 5,800. Like they're running out of options to throw to. Let's see, San Francisco versus Chicago. The wideouts have a middling matchup. Tight ends, have a middling matchup too. So that puts here. Let's take a look at the injuries for Chicago here. All right, Elijah Hicks being out, I think that benefits Kittle a bit. We got Jaquan Brisker is on IR. So they're really thin at safety. They got Coleman out on top of that on IR. I'm not sure the significance of that, but just the thinning out of this secondary here in the safety position. I think that is going to be beneficial to Kittle. So Kittle at 5,800 is interesting in this one. He might be the guy they lean on, especially with Guerrero taking over at the running back position. Guerrero, he had 4 targets back in week 8, but that's the most targets he's had. He's had 0 or 1 target in those other games, but he hasn't been getting that much usage. But if they decide to use him more like a Jordan Mason type of back, then Kittle is the guy who's going to benefit with McCaffrey being out. So yeah, I think I like Kittle a lot this week. And as far as other guys in this game, it could be a situation with Caleb Williams, but San Francisco's only giving up 15.2 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. But all those injuries to San Francisco's defense is interesting. This one's got a 44.5 point total, with San Francisco as 3.5 point favorites. But this is one that could be one of those ones that goes over the total. So yeah, let's take a look here at the final game, Buffalo at the Rams. Now, this is a game that obviously can shoot out with Stafford versus Allen. They're playing in LA, so we don't have to worry about weather in this one. As far as the matchup, the Rams D has been playing better recently, but they're still giving up 16.6 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback. They're giving up 24.3 to running backs. 21.8 to wideouts. As far as Buffalo's wideouts, who do they have left? This is going to be the question. They've been pretty banged up all season. Keon Coleman is questionable. Dalton Kincaid is questionable. So looks like they're going to be like healthier than they have been. Let's see. The slot receivers on Buffalo's side, they're getting 11.3 DraftKings points a game. If Keon Coleman plays, him and Amari Cooper both have decent matchups. Cooper might be interesting this week. We really haven't seen much out of him since he got to Buffalo. But if he gets, like 5 or 6 against a weak secondary, then we could see something interesting out of Cooper this week. Shakir, I think, is always going to be interesting. He's getting the most volume, and if you're getting the most volume in a Josh Allen offense, then you're going to be in good shape. He's at 5,900. He's capable of putting up 23 points. So Shakir is going to be interesting if you want to stack this game, if you believe it can. It's supposed to be the highest scoring game on the slate, 49.5 points, with Buffalo as 4.5 point favorites. So if you think this game shoots out, you got some weapons to play around with. Nakua. Buffalo recently, the last 4 weeks, they've been giving up 14.4. They've been vulnerable in the slot, giving up 14.4 DraftKings points a game to the slot. They've been vulnerable against the run all year. Now, Matthew Stafford had his entire offensive line healthy for the first time, I believe last week or 2 weeks ago. So he's got his offensive line. He's got his 2 receivers all healthy now. So, Nakua, Kyren Williams last week with them healthy, 21 DraftKings points. He ran 6.9 yards per attempt. His best outing of the year against New Orleans defense. So Kyren Williams is going to be in play against Buffalo. If you're trying to figure out the pieces to put together, I think on paper, the most sense would be, like if you want to do a stack, Josh Allen to maybe Shakir, running it back with Kyren Williams and Cooper Kupp. If you want to like massive stack, I don't know how much salary that eats up. Maybe we can play around with that a little bit. Let's start with this game for a lineup build. Make sure to hit that like button. Give me the 30 likes so I can put out my shorter video before lock. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 1,400 subscribers. Very close to getting there. I need 20 more to get to 1,300. So help me get that. Appreciate that. And check out the underdog shorts that I've been putting out. $10 to enter one of these things. You could win, like a couple $1,000, depending on which variation you go with of my my pick'ems that I put out there in my short video. Use the promo code SEEK. You're going to get up to $1,000 on a 50% deposit match. All right, so let's go to Allen. Let's put Josh Allen in first, and let's go with Shakir, and let's go with Williams. 7,300. That's actually pretty cheap. Let's go with Kupp. 7K. So we've used a big chunk of salary in this game stack. Now let's go to our defense. I like the Bears D this week. Let's get Let's get Barkley in. See how much that kills us. All right, let's get a tight end in. This is where we're probably got to do some salary relief. Got to try to find one of those super cheap guys. Bellinger's an option to plug in. How's Davis been doing? Yeah, he hasn't been getting any targets. Let's go with Darnell Washington, the guy I talked about earlier. A good matchup against Cleveland's D. This dude's gonna get like one of these games. He's gonna have 2 touchdowns. I just know he's gonna do that at some point. I just don't know when. He's a big body that Russell Wilson likes to throw to. I've seen him throw it to him in the red zone a couple times. Let's get another cheap guy. Let's get Charbonnet. This puts us at 2,800. So I'm going to have to get rid of one of these dudes. Let's get rid of Shakir. And if I'm going to put in a cheap guy instead of Shakir, Calvin Austin, talked about him earlier. Already got Darnell Washington in there, though. I don't know if I want to double up on those guys without throwing somebody on the Cleveland side in there. Yeah, this is going to be a tough one to get this this expensive stack in here. If we want to get Westbrook Akine in there, that is an option. So let's put him in there. It gives us 4K. David Moore, Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard, I think I would lean towards in this one. Let's say we put in Calvin Austin. Let's take out Westbrook Akine. Gives us options like Jalen Waddle. I mean, that gives us our Amari Cooper. So that gives us our guy that we can put in here with Josh Allen. So we just have to hope for an Amari Cooper game in this one. But that gives us Allen to Cooper. It gives us Kyron Williams and Cooper Kupp in there as well. So I like that. We got the cheap running back in Charbonnet, but then we get Barkley in there as well. So, I mean, it feels like a pretty stacked lineup considering we got a couple cheap guys in there in Calvin Austin and Darnell Washington. But, you know, that's really the big weak spot in the lineup. Everything else seems like it's pretty good. So that's one option. Let's go with Baker Mayfield lineup. I like Mike Evans this week. And I'm going to put Otten in there too because they got a pretty good matchup against the Raiders. I'm going to put Myers in there as the run back. I'm going to get Barkley. I want to get Barkley in like almost every lineup this week. And let's get Guerrendo in there. Going to put in the Bears D again. Leaves me with 4,800 per guy. I think in this one for my flex, I want Charbonnet. So that's going to leave me with 4,800. And then 4,800 from there, you can go with Elijah Moore, Wan'Dale Robinson, Westbrook Akine. A lot of good options. You could put Trey Tucker in there and get another Raider in there. A lot of good options considering. We got Baker Mayfield stack here. So it's not a cheap stack, but it works. So let's go with a cheap stack instead. Let's put Aiden O'Connell in there. So we got Connell to Myers. That's going to leave us with 6,400 for that last spot. Pollard, Drake London, Smith and Jigba. A lot of these guys I was talking about earlier. Brian Thomas Jr., another one. Tracy. A lot of good options. So, this is definitely a viable direction to go. I actually like this one a lot. Try to see if there's anything else worth. Oh, let's do a Will Levis, and then that'll be it. So make sure to hit that like button. Give me the 30 likes. Subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 1,400 subscribers. Help me get to 1,300 first. I'm about 20 short of that, so I appreciate that. All right, let's get Will Levis in there. Let's put him with Ridley. Let's get him Brian Thomas. Let's put Mike Evans in this one too. And let's get Barkley in. Guerrendo. Let's take the free squares here, and let's get Charbonnet. I'm going to go with a defense. Let's go with the Bears again. Leaves me with 4,700 for my tight end position. Otten is an option there. Hawkinson. Cole Kmet. Just a few really good names in there. But I like the direction that this goes to. It shows you just a few different options, like ways that you can go this week. I think the keys are going to be what you're going to do with the Barkley situation. What are you going to do with these cheap running backs? And which game are you going to stack? Because there's going to be a few of them, a few options. We got a 10-game slate, so get some decent options. Some that are. Let's take a look at the ownership. Keep an eye on injuries too, obviously. All right, Charbonnet has jumped up to 46% as far as his ownership. Guerrendo is up there at 30%. Even with those values opening up, Barkley's still at 18%. So you love to see that. But the game that people seem to be leaning towards, like this Vegas game, Myers and Bowers are both over 24%. So where is Aiden O'Connell? Aiden O'Connell's at 8%. So, I mean, you stack O'Connell in with any of those guys, and you're different. You don't have to do a whole much more differentiation at that point. On the Tampa side, Evans is under 20%. So, got some interesting games to choose from this week. Make sure to keep an eye on those injuries and keep an eye on further value opening up. Try to pick the value that has the best matchups and the best spots instead of just all the value that people have been talking about like all week. That's probably going to change. More stuff might open up and give opportunities to outthink people who are already committed to putting in guys. And make sure to put in the comment section if you have any preference on some of these cheap guys. So let's get a consensus going in the comment section on which of these cheap guys that you like the most. So all right, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Make sure to hit that like button. Give me the 30 likes and put out the next video, and I'll put out a showdown video for sure tomorrow. But give me the 30 likes to put out the on the radar video. All right, guys, thanks.